Good morning. Randolph-Macon College was founded by the United Methodist Church, a Christian denomination that affirms and celebrates all faith traditions. As we prepare for this morning's ceremony, let us take a moment to give thanks for our many blessings. Gracious Creator God, we may know you by many names, but ours is an existence that clearly made possible by your creation. In this great institution of higher education, we are taught a balance of faith and reason, understanding that we cannot explain everything that is around us, and knowing that our minds have developed in a way that continues to question everything that is around us. We acknowledge today the sad fact that there are those within our individual journeys who are not present here today to celebrate the many accomplishments of our graduates. Those who, because of illness, distance, or death, can only be with us in spirit. We welcome them here with us today as well as we seek to feel their presence among us. Today we will give thanks and we will celebrate accomplishments, individual and collective. We will hear motivating words and shake congratulatory hands. And what has taken many years to accomplish will be over before we know it. Help us to pause, to listen, and to relish this time together, rain or shine. Let us focus on the true celebration, the celebration of lifelong learning, and all that it holds for us in the future. And now bless all of us who are assembled here today, for ours is a special bond. Members of a community, lemon and black, forever united as one large extended family. Jackets yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And all of God's people said, amen.
Good morning. Please be seated. I understand why you'd stand for the prayer and for the national anthem, but there's no reason to stand for me. Good morning. I'm Alan Raskin. I'm a proud graduate of the class of 1969. I'm honored to serve as chair of the college's Board of Trustees, and I'm privileged to welcome you to the 2018 commencement ceremony. I'm superstitious, so I'm not going to mention the R word. I appreciate, however, the accommodations that everyone has made. Perhaps this isn't the optimal setting, but it's always a great day for commencement, and it's always, the students would tell you, a great day to be a YJ. I want to start by thanking everyone here today, students, parents, alumni, faculty, staff, friends, and distinguished guests, for all the many meaningful ways in which you support and nurture this wonderful college. And I bring special greetings to you from the class of I bring special greetings to the class of 2018 from the trustees who are either with me on the stadium or watching remotely so that we'd be sure to have plenty of room for all the guests. All the people who are here today, whoever they are here for one purpose. They're here to celebrate and congratulate you, the class of 2018, for your activities and achievements and accomplishments in the classroom, in campus organizations, on the athletic fields, and throughout the community, the state, and even the nation. You are a credit to this fine institution, and we're proud to welcome you into the family of Randolph-Macon graduates. And we take pride in instilling the class into that noble group of Randolph-Macon educated men and women. Now, to the members of the class of 2018, as you conclude your last moments as a student here, I have one more, I'll say, lesson. I submit that your obligation, indeed your mission, should now be to use your education to enrich not only your own lives, but also the lives of those who you come into contact with as you go forward from this place. Your liberal arts education has imbued you with rare values, and it's a gift. And if you allow them to do so, you can use these gifts to pay dividends throughout your lives. So promise those who are here to cheer you on, indeed, promise yourselves that you will use those gifts and those values wisely and unselfishly. Now, for just a moment, I'd like to turn our attention away from today's graduates and turn to a group that graduated, say, a while ago. This morning we have with us a special group of alumni known as the Boyden Society. And these are the members of the classes that graduated from Randolph-Macon 50 years or more ago. And this year that distinguished group will add to its membership the class of 1968. I actually remember those people. And bringing the total membership of the Boyden Society to 1,449, or roughly the same size as our student body. Since leaving Randolph-Macon, the members of the Boyden Society have remembered the lasting benefits of their education and their experience here, and they have expressed their appreciation tangibly through their engagement with the college and through their generous, extremely generous support. Thus, this group of Yellow Jackets has contributed, get this, nearly $142 million to the college. Would the members of the Boyden Society and the class of 1968 please stand so we can congratulate you and welcome you. So now the members of the class of 2018 may be asking yourself two questions. One, what do these not-so-recent graduates have to do with me? And two, when are we going to get to the good part where I get my diploma? The answers to those questions are, respectively, lots and soon. Just be patient. Lots because we have been able as a college since 2010 to invest $79 million in new and renovated facilities and acquisitions, of which you, the class of 2018, has been able to take advantage. And we anticipate in the next year or so to add an investment of another $20.5 million, and not a single dollar, not a single penny of these sums has come from your tuition or the tuition of those who preceded you. Rather, it comes from the generous support and philanthropy of those who have preceded you, not just our friends and our faculty and our staff and your parents, but especially our alumni, our very generous alumni. And speaking of our alumni, last year, 38% of our alumni made a gift to the college, placing Randolph-Macon in the top 25 among all the colleges and universities, public and private, in the nation. That's not the top 25%, that is the top 25. And this alumni support is indicative Thank you for that applause, and I saw the faculty applauding, and the faculty should applaud themselves because this alumni recognition is in large part a recognition of the meaningful education that these alumni got when they were here from this faculty and from the predecessor faculties. So to the class of 2018, as you embark on the future, remember the generosity and the kindness of those who preceded you, and make it your goal to remember your experience here at Randolph-Macon fondly. So again, I thank all of you who share with us this great day, whether your connection to the college spans 4 years or less, 50 years or more, or something in between. We're glad you're joining us today on this festive and important occasion, a milestone in the life not just of our students, but of the college, as it celebrates its 188th year of service to the Commonwealth and the nation. And yes, as I promised, now we get to the good part. So I introduce to you and ask you to sit back, relax, and hope for good weather as I introduce President Robert Lindgren and Provost Dr. William Franz.
I would now like to call on Dr. Amy Goodwin, Randolph-Macon Professor of English, and would Dr. Joy Carter come forward between President Lindgren and me.
I have the pleasure of introducing our first honorary degree recipient, Dr. Joy M. Carter, who over the course of her life and career has become very familiar with being first. The first person, the first woman, or the first African American to hold prestigious and specialized positions in her field. Dr. Carter was the first Black chief medical examiner appointed in the history of our nation, the first female physician to serve as a chief medical examiner in Texas, the first Black woman to serve as deputy chief of the Department of the Armed Forces Medical Examiner, and the first graduate of Howard University College of Medicine to be board certified in forensic pathology. Graduating cum laude from Wittenberg University in 1979, Dr. Carter received a health professions scholarship from the United States Air Force and served in the Air Force while pursuing medical studies at Howard University College of Medicine. She retired from the Air Force in 2000 with the rank of major. Since 1992, when Dr. Carter left active duty, she has served as the chief medical examiner in Washington, D.C. and Harris County, Texas, as the chief forensic pathologist to the Marion County coroner in Indianapolis, Indiana, and now as the forensic pathologist to the sheriff's office in San Luis Obispo, California. Dr. Carter has clearly been a leader in the field. During her time in the Air Force, she served as the Medical Corps and Chief Physician, Director of Forensic Education for the Armed Forces Medical Examiner System, and Director of the Forensic Science Master's Program of the Armed Forces Institute of Pathology at George Washington University. Since 2002, she has served as a consultant to the Armed Forces as an expert forensic pathologist witness. She has authored and co-authored scholarly articles that have appeared in numerous academic and medical journals, in addition to writing 2 motivational books, My Strength Comes From Within and I Speak for the Dead, inspiring others with her incredible life experiences. She is a nationally sought-after speaker whose topics range from forensic science and health to issues facing families, African Americans, and women. And she has, over the years, spoken to several faculty, staff, and student audiences here at Randolph-Macon College. Dr. Carter has demonstrated with true excellence how a passion and a profession can be positively shaped to shape our culture and share knowledge with others to make the world a better place. We are very proud to bestow the honorary degree of Doctor of Science on Dr. Joy M. Carter.
Dr. Carter, we honor you for your outstanding service to our country and your extraordinary dedication to forensic medicine and science. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Faculty and Trustee Committee, and upon the vote of the Randolph-Macon College Board of Trustees, by virtue of the authority vested in me, I award you the degree Doctor of Science with all the rights, privileges, and honors appertaining thereto. Congratulations.
The citation for our next honorary degree will be presented by Professor Benjamin Huff, Randolph-Macon Professor of Philosophy. Would Dr. Elizabeth Quiche come forward between President Lindgren and me?
Dr. Elizabeth Ii Quiche, commitment to philosophical reflection and democratic values in her roles as scholar, professor, and administrator has made her a transformational leader in higher education. Dr. Quiche is a 1983 graduate of Davidson College. A Rhodes Scholar, she went on to receive bachelor's and doctorate degrees in philosophy from Oxford University. Her academic excellence earned her fellowships at the Harvard Program in Ethics and the Professions, the National Humanities Center, and the University of Melbourne's Center on Applied Philosophy and Public Ethics. She began her career as a visiting professor in my own department here at Randolph-Macon in 1987, a wonderful distinction for us, and continued her teaching career at Deep Springs College and Princeton University. She was appointed as the founding Cohane Director of the Keenan Institute for Ethics at Duke University, and at the same time served as an associate professor of political science and philosophy at Duke. Dr. Quiche's work in moral and political philosophy shows a subtle and judicious sense for cultivating civil society and social unity. She has perceptively explored topics that deeply impact underrepresented members of our society, including women, minorities, and those seeking justice in the face of human rights violations. 12 years ago, she became the president of Agnes Scott College in Decatur, Georgia. Dr. Quiche has been a champion for women's colleges, boosting enrollment, creating traditions, exceeding fundraising goals, and encouraging Agnes Scott women to learn from a global perspective. The Summit program, which she launched during her tenure there, is nationally recognized for its innovative way of combining classical aspirations of liberal education with the distinctive demands of our present and its increasingly urgent need for leaders who can truly think globally. Her devotion to serving others is evident in everything she does and has been recognized on countless occasions, including her receiving the Legacy Award from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Metro Atlanta, a POW Award honoring purposeful women from Womenetics, the Dress for Success Champion for Success Award, and a Women of Distinction recognition by the Girl Scouts Council of Northwest Georgia. Dr. Quiche is in her final month as president of Agnes Scott College, after which she will move to Oxford, England, where she will serve as the first female warden and CEO of the Rhodes Trust, which selects recipients for the prestigious Rhodes Scholarships. It is a great and profound honor to present Dr. Elizabeth Ii Quiche with the honorary degree Doctor of Humanities.
Dr. Quiche, we thank you for your profound dedication to scholarship and leadership. You are a true champion for higher education, and we honor you today for your many achievements in your field, all earned with integrity and a commitment to your values. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Faculty and Trustee Committee, and upon the vote of the Randolph-Macon College Board of Trustees, by virtue of the authority vested in me, I award you the degree Doctor of Humanities, with all rights, privileges, and honors appertaining thereto. Congratulations.
The citation for our next honorary degree will be presented by Dr. Marisa Cull, Randolph-Macon College Associate Professor of English. Would Dr. John King come forward between President Lindgren and me?
It is my great pleasure to recognize my teacher, mentor, and friend, Dr. John N. King, Randolph-Macon College, class of 1965. Professor King has had a highly distinguished career as an educator, and he is an internationally recognized expert in Renaissance literature and history, Reformation literature and history, and most recently in the burgeoning field of book history. After graduating Phi Beta Kappa from Randolph-Macon College, Professor King earned his doctorate from the University of Chicago. After teaching at Bates College in Lewiston, Maine, he began his illustrious 21-year tenure at The Ohio State University, where he inspired countless students, including me, with both his seriousness of purpose and the sheer joy he took in his subject. His collection of scholarly work is not only vast, but profound. His findings featured in over 100 journals and a stunning 14 books from Cambridge University Press, Princeton University Press, and the University of Pennsylvania Press. With each of his projects, he works to develop new areas of expertise, to share new types of knowledge, and to broaden scholars' perception of his subject matter. He is a recognized leader in his field, serving as director or co-director of 11 National Endowment for the Humanities summer seminars, and completing numerous residencies and fellowships, including at the Rockefeller Foundation Study Center, the Folger Shakespeare Library, the Huntington Library, the National Humanities Center, and more. Following his retirement from Ohio State as a distinguished professor emeritus, he continues his commitment to scholarly work as a senior research fellow at the University of Virginia's Rare Book School. 2 years ago, he returned to his alma mater, Randolph-Macon, to give a lecture for our students and to share just a small piece of the prolific scholarly work he has masterfully completed over the past several decades. It is our distinct honor and privilege to present Dr. John N. King his second Randolph-Macon degree, Honorary Doctor of Letters.
Dr. King, we honor you for your truly groundbreaking literary research and writings. You have made your alma mater very proud. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Faculty and Trustee Committee and upon the vote of the Randolph-Macon College Board of Trustees, by virtue of the authority vested in me, I award you the degree Letters, Doctor of Letters, with all rights, privileges, and honors appertaining thereto. Congratulations.
The citation for our fourth and final honorary degree will be presented by Dr. Charles Gowan, the Paul H. Warnham Professor of Biological Sciences. Would Mrs. Carol Estes Williams come forward between President Lindgren and me?
Morning, everyone. Carol Estes Williams has a distinguished career educator, philosopher, volunteer, philanthropist. She graduated from Ursinus College outside of Philadelphia. I understand she's a Philadelphia Phillies fan. graduated in 1977, but her hometown was Richmond, and she came back to teach at Collegiate here in Richmond, physical education. So you can see sports have always been an important part of her life. I understand that she most enjoys watching her now adult children play sports. David, I'll have a bit more to say about him in a moment. Elise, who I had the pleasure of having in a class in her freshman year, I believe. She graduated in 2014. And Jonathan, who I did not get in my clutches, he graduated in 2015. She combines her interest in athletics with philanthropic spirit. And so more than 30 years ago, she founded a softball tournament for youth and adults with Down syndrome. It's in honor of her son David, who has Downs. The proceeds go to the Down Syndrome Association of Greater Richmond, and they generate upwards of $300,000 per year, and now for 30 years. So that's millions of dollars of resources for folks with Down syndrome. She's also active in Special Olympics. Special Olympics Virginia gave her their highest award in 2012, the Virginia H. Foster Award. And then, of course, anybody who has been on the Randolph-Macon campus knows the word Estes quite well. Not only our dining hall, our aquatic center, and then also Estes Park here, where our wonderful baseball team, Go Jackets, just had a wonderful tournament. And she's also directly supported faculty. A good example is a course given by Donna Turney in our philosophy department and Alva Hughes in our psych department. It's called the Minding class. And what they do is students in this class meet regularly with citizens with intellectual disabilities just to talk, to exchange information. And I know this from talking to students who have taken the class, it's life-changing for everyone involved. So thank you for that support of the faculty. She's also supported education in other ways. She was on the board of directors of Trinity Episcopal here in Richmond, and currently continues to serve on their advisory board. So you can see in so many ways she brings the minds and the hearts of people together in ways that really change lives. So therefore, it gives me great pleasure to present honorary degree Doctor of Humanities to Mrs. Carol Estes Williams.
Carol Estes Williams, we honor you for your passionate commitment to serving others and are grateful for your continued support of the mission of Randolph-Macon College. Pursuant to the recommendation of the Faculty and Trustee Committee and upon the vote of the Randolph-Macon College Board of Trustees, by virtue of the authority vested in me, I award you the degree Doctor of Humanities with all rights, privileges, and honors appertaining thereto. Congratulations. It was the summer of 1987, and an already highly accomplished young scholar had just agreed to serve as a visiting instructor in our Randolph-Macon philosophy department. Elizabeth Quiche would arrive in Ashland that fall directly from 3 years of study as a Rhodes Scholar at Oxford University. Her visiting appointment at Randolph-Macon would be her very first higher education teaching position out of Oxford. Already, Elizabeth had a long list of accomplishments to recommend her. In addition to her prestigious Rhodes Scholarship, which would result in her earning a D.Phil in philosophy at Oxford, she had also been awarded a United States Presidential Scholarship, an American Association of University Women Dissertation Fellowship, and other impressive fellowships as well. She had earlier graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Davidson College, class of 1983, and as one of only 4 students in her class to earn a full academic scholarship for 4 years. It was at Davidson where Professor of Philosophy Joe Beatty taught her in his classroom, recognizing her remarkable intelligence and forming a connection with her that would last long after graduation. In 1983, just after Dr. Quiche graduated, Professor Beatty left Davidson himself to begin a remarkable 23-year career at Randolph-Macon, serving as both professor and chair of philosophy during his illustrious tenure. Retiring in 2006, he left a legacy of impacting generations of RMC students, as well, it would seem, of having a superior eye for recruiting excellent faculty. You see, it was Professor Beatty who had reached out to Elizabeth to serve in that visiting professorship here in 1987. And no doubt it was his exceptional mentorship that persuaded her to accept. Graduates, please take note. Your professors can have an impact on your lives long after your graduation. And how did she do here? Joe reports that she hit the ground running as a college professor, with her students going out of their way to tell him how terrific she was. Professor Beatty is here today from his home in Pennsylvania to celebrate not only today's commencement, but also his wonderful long-term friendship with our speaker, and we are honored that he is here. Joe, please stand and accept our thanks. When she arrived in Ashland, RMC staff members Brent and Carter Douglas opened their guest room to this visiting faculty member, who had been described to them as a delightful young woman from Oxford. Brent and Carter, who are also with us this morning, were eager to make Elizabeth as comfortable as possible and had just assumed that she was coming from Oxford, that she was British and not a woman born in the Bronx who spent her formative years growing up in Northern Virginia. So you can imagine their surprise and Elizabeth's when she arrived at their home with a very American accent and preferring a large glass of iced sweet tea rather than a cup of Earl Grey. And we are indeed honored, very honored, that Randolph-Macon College proved to be the beginning of Elizabeth Quiche's notable and very consequential career in higher education. From here, she would go on to teach for 8 years at Princeton, while holding research fellowships at Harvard and Australia's University of Melbourne. From 1997 to 2006, Dr. Quiche served as the founding Cohen Director of Duke University's Keenan Institute for Ethics, building a university-wide interdisciplinary center there. And in 2006, she was appointed the 8th president of Agnes Scott College, a distinguished liberal arts college for women in Georgia. It is safe to say that her 12-year tenure as president of Agnes Scott has been truly transformative. She has been characterized by those who know her as a change agent, a thought leader, and a courageous innovator. And on a personal note, Elizabeth has been an extraordinary friend and colleague for me. I have learned so much from her wonderful advice and example over essentially the identical period of time we have served in our similar roles. And I so appreciate, as do all who know Dr. Quiche, her great warmth and absolutely contagious sense of optimism. And in this climate, which does not always wholly understand or support the importance of a liberal arts tradition in higher education, and perhaps even less so for women-only colleges, I can tell you that President Quiche has been a highly effective champion for the liberal arts, expertly navigating a challenging landscape and strengthening Agnes Scott and all liberal arts colleges in the process. She has done this by vigorously advocating for what has made liberal arts colleges like Agnes Scott and Randolph-Macon so very successful in educating our students to become tomorrow's leaders while simultaneously pushing the envelope to embrace innovation and a new vision for the future. Her initiative called Summit entailed an extensive overhaul of Agnes Scott's curriculum, no easy endeavor, and her leadership style and skill in bringing everyone to the table, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and trustees alike, is widely credited with the program's success, and the results have been spectacular, with Agnes Scott enrolling and retaining more students than ever before, and leading to the college's #2 ranking by U.S. News as a most innovative school, and by the American Council of Education's award for institutional transformation. And very significantly, the Chronicle of Higher Education named President Quiche to its 2017 list of U.S. higher education's most influential people. President Quiche's work has also been instrumental in the financial stewardship at Agnes Scott, where she led a fabulously successful $115 million campaign. President Quiche has also been a community leader in Atlanta and Georgia, as well as in important higher education organizations nationally. And she has notably served as both the vice chair of the Davidson College Board of Trustees and as a current trustee of Duke University as well. And in January of this year, we learned of President Quiche's next leadership role when she was named as the first female warden of Rhodes House, in effect the CEO responsible for the organization responsible for the Rhodes Scholar Program, unquestionably the most prestigious postgraduate scholarship in the world, drawing students to Oxford from over 60 countries. And 35 years after receiving the Rhodes Scholarship herself, President Quiche will indeed have come full circle, returning to Oxford with her husband Jeff, also a Rhodes Scholar, to serve in this exceptionally meaningful and important position. And this morning, too, she is traveling full circle as well, returning to Randolph-Macon College, where she served a mere 3 decades ago. Returning to this campus and on this stage, where we are just so very honored and delighted to have you with us here today, Elizabeth, for an encore performance. Graduates and guests, it is my very great pleasure to present your 2018 commencement speaker, President Elizabeth Quiche.
Thank you so much, President Lindgren, for that incredibly warm and generous introduction, and for your friendship and for the amazing leadership that you provide Randolph-Macon College and American higher education. Good morning. Okay, come on. Good morning. Awesome. The prayers have been answered. The weather is holding for now, and I am so delighted to be here with all of you. I greet President Lindgren, members of the Board of Trustees, faculty and staff, alumni, families and friends, my fellow honorees with whom I am so honored to share the stage today, and of course, and above all, our graduating seniors and their sponsors. It is a thrill to be back at Randolph-Macon, and how wonderful to celebrate with the largest graduating class to date in Randolph-Macon history, the great class of 2018. You know, the skies may be gray and the grass a bit soggy, but the yellow jackets shine on. This beautiful campus, as you've heard, is where my own academic career began, where I started to recognize and to embrace my calling as an educator. Randolph-Macon was an inflection point in my life, a moment of sharpened clarity about my vocation and my career. Seniors, I know it has been an inflection point for you too, and that over the past 4 years, you have not only gained knowledge and skills, but also developed a stronger sense of who you are and who you want to become. And even if there may be a few of you who are just as confused today as you were 4 years ago, trust me, the ways that you have developed your mind and your character in this place will shape your life and enrich your contributions to the world in the 30, 50, and 70 years to come. Liberal arts colleges like Randolph-Macon and my own institution, Agnes are what New York Times columnist David Brooks has called thick institutions. You pass through a thin institution with scarcely a memory. It's just a place to get a credential or earn a paycheck. Whereas a thick institution becomes a part of your identity. It engages you, head, hands, heart, and soul. Thick institutions, Brooks writes, have, quote, an intimacy and identity born out of common love, a love for a higher purpose, unquote. And he adds, people like the version of themselves that is called forth by such institutions. So as you prepare to cross the stage, seniors, I want you to savor this moment, to look around at your classmates, professors, and mentors, and to reflect on all the ways this beautiful, thick community has engaged you, head, hands, heart, and soul. I love the tradition at Randolph-Macon of having every graduate select a sponsor and include them in the commencement ceremony. So seniors, I invite you now to just take a moment and turn around to thank your sponsor for the role that they have played in getting you to this magical moment. And I join you in expressing my gratitude to my Randolph-Macon sponsor, Professor Emeritus of Philosophy Joe Beatty, who took the leap of faith of reaching out to his former student to offer me a job, who helped me find my vocation as an educator, and who was and remains such an inspiring and encouraging mentor, colleague, and friend. Thank you so much, Joe. So what a remarkable group you are, class of 2018. Your class has witnessed a lot of history, and you've made some of it yourselves. As freshmen, you experienced something unique in the annals of U.S. higher education, a congressional race between two of your professors. Since then, a substantial number of you have interned with the state or federal government, worked on presidential campaigns, or traveled to New Hampshire as part of Professor Fulmer's retail politics class. One of you has already served your country and won 3 Purple Hearts. Several of you have experienced firsthand, the dramatic closure of Sweetbriar College and transfer to Randolph-Macon, adopting this community as your own. You are one of the winningest classes in college sports history, garnering 4 regular season conference titles, 3 conference championships, 4 NCAA appearances, 1 Elite 8 National Championship Series appearance, and just last week, those are several sports, but just last week, a #1 national ranking and an amazing run in the College Baseball Division III World Series. Let's hear it for the Yellow Jackets. In football, you beat arch rival Hampden-Sydney 4 years in a row. And I understand that's the first time, hello train, since 2001. And in that extraordinary accomplishment, And in that extraordinary accomplishment, you honored your beloved late teammate, Christian Cousins, whose parents are in attendance today. Thank you so much. Many of you have experienced a wider world through internships, January term study travel courses, and other study abroad opportunities. You have found your voices as scholars, presenting your work at Research Day, and all of you have forged memories together, sitting on those beautiful Adirondack chairs around the fountain, hanging out at the renamed England Street Tavern, spending time in not one, not two, but 3 Brock buildings and keeping them straight, and looking at the bricks with the names of graduates stretching back to the 1950s. So now, here you are, at the moment you've been working toward for the past 4, indeed the past 16 years. Today, you will walk across the stage and be a college graduate, celebrating this landmark accomplishment together. Today, you are at the finish line of a very important journey, one of the most important of your lives. And tomorrow, well, as the very word commencement suggests, tomorrow you start all over again, but this time on divergent, unscripted journeys of your own. So how should you think about those new journeys ahead? What's the secret to postgraduate life? Well, I have to confess I'm still muddling through and trying to figure it out myself. In fact, as I get ready to embark on a new beginning myself, a new unscripted journey, I'm especially aware, deeply aware of how much I am a work in progress in that life wisdom department. But what I do have going for me is I've been at it a lot longer than all of you. I remember when I first started teaching at Randolph-Macon, then students would ask, what should I be focusing on in next week's reading? And after a moment of panic, I'd say, well, I'll let you know next week. I'm sure faculty can kind of relate to that. It took me a while to add, with a bit more confidence, we'll figure it out together. And it took me even longer to figure out that even though I sometimes felt I was barely a step ahead of the students, I did have something of value to offer. So since I am a bit further along on the journey, here are 3 things I've learned along the way. First, no one connects the dots in advance. We improvise, and we connect the dots later. College seniors everywhere, I'm sure it's true of many of you too, dread the question, so what are your future plans? And they feel a sense of immense relief if they land a job or get into graduate school, like, okay, now I have an answer. That idea that your life and career has a clear linear progression, that you have to map it out in advance, still dominates many people's thinking. Yet it's never been true, and in today's rapidly shifting economy has gotten even less so. We live our lives moving forward, but we shape the narrative of our lives looking back. My mother used to say that the pattern of our lives is a beautiful piece of embroidery, but we experience our lives along the backside of the canvas where all the messy knots and loops are, and where there often seems to be no logical pattern. Only at the end do we get to turn the canvas around and see that beautiful pattern whole. One of my favorite books is Mary Catherine Bateson's Composing a Life, and in that she puts it this way: rather than a linear quest or a blueprint, life is an improvisational art. We compose it out of the disparate bits and pieces of experience we pull together along the way. The trick isn't to figure it all out at the start and then make it happen. It is rather to compose it along the way and build coherence as you look back. So today, looking back at my time at Randolph-Macon 30 years ago, I see that it was an incredibly important inflection point that helped me figure out my passion for teaching and education. At the time, it felt like an interlude maybe even a detour, since I wasn't actually planning to be an academic. But I found that I loved it, and that led me to explore an academic career. My detour became my path. But then what I thought was my path turned out to be a detour. I landed a dream job, a tenure-track position at Princeton University. And I discovered that while that is a dream job, it wasn't my dream job. It didn't suit me or make me happy. I needed to pivot to a different kind of creative role within the academy. Today, looking back, I can connect all those dots and I can trace the narrative and it's coherent, but I could never have done that from the beginning. In fact, I stumbled my way through a lot of that. I needed to improvise it and figure it out along the way. So, seniors, if you think you have it figured out and know exactly where you're headed, chances are you're wrong. You'll experience surprises, setbacks, failures, and detours along the way. But otherwise, on the other hand, if you think you haven't got a clue where you're going, you're also wrong. You've got a lot of the pieces already. You just have to figure out how to put them together. Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, once told a story that when he was at loose ends, having dropped out of Reed College, he took a calligraphy course. He loved it and found it fascinating. But at the time, he, and no doubt his long-suffering family, thought it was a frivolity, a distraction from the important work of figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. Later, it turned out to be an important step in his journey, since he was able to build on what he learned in that class, what it sparked for him to create the distinctive look and feel of the transformative Apple interface. So when I say that no one connects the dots in advance, I do not mean to suggest that we should avoid making plans or just drift through life. On the contrary, what I mean to suggest is say yes to adventures and interesting detours and opportunities. Commit to them. Improvise and try. You never know how an experience may help you shape your life through new insights and new connections. The lesson is also to pay attention along the way and keep an open mind and heart, because success can morph into failure and failure into success in the improvisational art of life. Second, the world needs people who combine pessimism of the intellect with optimism of the will. When I turned on my phone early this morning, the National Weather Service had issued a flash flood warning for Hanover County. It's not starting yet, thank goodness. But as we look around the world, it does appear, to quote Bob Dylan, that a hard rain's gonna fall. In your lifetimes, class of 2018, you've already experienced a global financial crisis, a long, drawn-out war with no end in sight, and today, threats and storm clouds are gathering, from climate change to the rise of virulent forms of nationalism, racism, and religious extremism at home and abroad, from growing inequality to a fraying of the post-World War II international order, which has maintained an uneasy equilibrium in the nuclear age. So yeah, there's a lot to deal with, and some of it is truly frightening. And it is at times like these that we need people like you, people who can cultivate that combination of qualities, the critical intelligence necessary to face up to inconvenient truths and dangerous threats, as well as the hope and optimism needed to do something about them. The Italian philosopher Antonio Gramsci, writing during the dark days of Mussolini's fascist regime, eloquently captured this combination of critical qualities with his phrase, pessimism of the intellect and optimism of the will. So yes, graduates from the class of 2018, you will have to stand up and speak out and show that pessimism of the intellect and optimism of the will. But even in more modest and less dramatic settings, it's important to cultivate that combination of qualities. Whether you lead an organization, chair a committee, work with a team, you need to be able to understand and acknowledge the hard problems and challenges, the weaknesses and the threats, while mustering the optimism and courage and idealism that people need to make things better. In my own life and career, I've often been inspired by Gramsci's phrase, so much so that a friend of mine once had a beach towel made for me with pessimism of the intellect, optimism of the will embroidered on it. A true collector's item, I'm sure unique on planet Earth. At different times of my life, I've been tempted to embrace one side to the exclusion of the other, to kind of wallow in the recognition of difficulties and challenges and be paralyzed by it, or to embrace a shallow and unthinking can-do attitude without truly confronting the challenges. Only when I combine the two have I been able to make a difference. Here at Randolph-Macon, you have been given the tools to combine pessimism of the intellect with optimism of the will. The power of a liberal arts education is that it invites, inspires, and equips us to ask those big, hard questions, to analyze and critique the world as it is, and to face up to what Immanuel Kant called the crooked timber, the very crooked timber of our humanity. But also here at Randolph-Macon, as part of this beautiful, thick community of shared purpose and ideals, in your classrooms, in your organizations, on your teams, you have experienced how people come together to get things done and to make their corner of the world a better place. Those qualities are vital for you to sustain in your postgraduate lives. Your communities, your organizations, and the larger world desperately needs them. And finally, they're shiny and they're shining, and you have to know the difference. This was a life lesson I learned when I was a high school senior, and it has stuck with me for all the decades since. I was competing for a merit scholarship at Davidson College named for a young man, Edward Crosland Stewart, who had died tragically very young. Edward's brother Bill read a letter that Edward had written from India, where he traveled after graduating from Davidson. And in that letter, Edward drew a contrast between shiny things and shining things. Building on his brother's letter, Bill Stewart admonished us to seek and to treasure that which is not merely shiny, but that which shines from within. You see, shiny things reflect the light in their immediate vicinity. They have a momentary and contextual sparkle, whereas shining things radiate light from within. Now, let's face it, unless you're a hermit, a fakir, or an ascetic, we all love shiny things. We spend a lot of our lives pursuing them. Grades, awards, popularity, promotions, salary increases, stylish new wardrobes, fabulous gadgets. We adore them and we want them. But you take a shiny thing out of its immediate context and it loses its sparkle. What was in is now totally out. In fact, it is so last year. That new gadget is made obsolete by the next generation gadget. You go to a new school where no one cares what your grades were or what awards you got at your old school. Your wardrobe goes out of style and you yourself get old and wrinkly. Shiny things don't travel too well across space and time. Now, I am not trying to suggest that it's wrong to pursue shiny things. In fact, let me encourage all of you to boldly pursue shiny things like graduate fellowships and good jobs and other honors. No, the important thing is to keep shiny things in perspective. If you look to them for happiness or self-worth, you will ultimately find yourself disappointed. Their value depends on their link to shining things. It's a lesson I've had to learn and relearn time and again. A lesson it's easy, especially at transitions in our lives, to forget. So as you move forward to the next chapter of your life, many of the shiny things that loomed so large in college and were so important to you will begin to fade into the background. You really can't take them with you. So what do you take with you? What has the ability to shine through every page and every chapter of your life? What will continue to enrich and sustain you wherever you find yourself? You can find it right there in the Randolph-Macon College mission statement, mind and character. Curiosity and the desire to learn new things will make your life interesting and valuable, and you an interesting and valuable person wherever you go. Courage, as the journalist Claire Booth Luce once said, is the ladder on which all the other virtues mount and can sustain you in tough times. Hope is a deliberate turning toward the light, even in dark times. And love and kindness know no cultural or temporal boundaries and never go out of style. So, Yellow Jackets, as you celebrate the end of this extraordinary journey and prepare to launch the journeys ahead, I encourage you to accept that you can't connect the dots in advance, and therefore to embrace life as an improvisational art. I challenge you to face the challenges of your time with pessimism of the intellect and optimism of the will. And I am truly confident that you will always remember that shiny things don't last, but shining things, curiosity, courage, hope, and love, those endure forever. Shine on, Yellow Jackets.
President Quiche, we thank you for your wonderful message, and I know these jackets will shine on. We have for you a memento from your visit here from the campus bookstore, which Barclay wanted me to mention will be open after commencement. It is, as you see, a symbol of today, a yellow jacket umbrella, but it's also a symbol of tomorrow. We know the country where you're going. You will need this. You will need this. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. I would like to invite graduating seniors Alex Daub and Frazier Mayberry to come forward to announce a senior gift to the college, along with Nicole Nicholson, who will help present that gift, and would Society of Alumni President Hunter Lehman, class of 2000, join as well.
All right, good morning, President Lindgren, distinguished guests, and fellow graduates of the class of 2018. The purpose of the senior class gift campaign is to educate our class about the importance of giving back to Randolph-Macon. Each senior was asked to make a donation to the college, and the class of 2018 gift reflects the collective sum of all of our contributions. On behalf of the Senior Class Gift Committee, I would like to present President Lindgren and Randolph-Macon College the 2018 Senior Class gift of over $11,318 from 90% of the class as of yesterday, June 1st.
By giving so generously, our class has shown our commitment to the college and reaffirmed our understanding of the universal truth, that no matter what great heights we will reach in our lifetime, no one does it alone. Many graduates are here today because someone gave them the chance to succeed through their generous gifts to the college. Now it is our chance to do so, to continue providing opportunities for the Randolph-Macon students who will come after us. The Senior Gift Committee would like to thank everyone who supported the campaign this year. Best wishes in all your future endeavors.
stay here a minute.
On behalf of everyone at Randolph-Macon College, our faculty and staff, and our current students, our alumni and friends and supporters, but especially those students who are yet to arrive, who will benefit from your generosity, we thank you for what you have done. This magnificent gift, which, by the way, the results overnight have pushed it to 91%. So congratulations. You are indeed a special class. Thank you very much. Thank you. President of the Randolph-Macon College Society of Alumni, Hunter Lehman, will offer a special message to the class of 2018.
Good morning, Randolph-Macon. It is my great honor to officially welcome you, the class of 2018, into the Randolph-Macon College Society of Alumni. Our Alumni Association is the 6th oldest in the nation, founded in 1839. Throughout the decades, our alumni have garnered many accomplishments. In the coming years, I am confident that you, as alumni, will add to our collective success. On my own graduation day, I remember the excitement and nervousness that I felt. In the years that follow, I came to appreciate the fact that the entire college community helped me build a solid foundation, preparing me for the road ahead. On this day, I want you to take comfort in the knowledge that the alumni of Randolph-Macon are prepared to help you along the way. As you so enthusiastically supported your senior class gift, I encourage you to continue to contribute your time and resources to the college. Your involvement will strengthen the college and our entire community. On behalf of those who have walked before you, congratulations to all of you on this significant milestone, and welcome, my fellow alumni. Congratulations.
Thank you, Hunter. As many of you know, one of our most respected and beloved professors, Dr. Bruce M. Unger, passed away in 2008 after nearly 40 years of service as a teacher, scholar, mentor, and colleague at Randolph-Macon. He enriched our campus by his presence and was a model on how to conduct one's life with dignity and purpose. One former student commented of Dr. Unger, "For those he taught, he made us better students. For those he mentored, he made us better people." We memorialize Bruce's wonderful legacy with the Bruce M. Unger Award. The Unger Award is given to retiring faculty with 10 or more years of service to the college, and the award consists of a certificate and monetary award made possible by generous contributions in Professor Unger's memory. We're honored today to have with us Mrs. Arlene Unger, wife of Professor Bruce Unger. Arlene, could you please rise and be recognized? Today we recognize 3 talented and dedicated professors who will receive this award. Professor of Classics Gregory N. Doherty devoted 42 years of his life to teaching at Randolph-Macon College. Professor of Spanish Mark Moline has served the college for more than 20 years. Professor of Chinese Jiaxin Wu engaged Randolph-Macon College students in Chinese language and cultural studies for 27 years. All 3 are gifted teachers and prodigious scholars, and we are grateful to Greg, Mark, and Jiaxin for their unwavering commitment to this great institution and for strongly upholding the tradition for quality for which our faculty are known. Professor Wu could not be with us today. Today we will recognize Professors Greg Doherty and Mark Moline with Bruce Unger Awards.
Our senior speaker today is a superb example of a student who has made the very most of his experience at Randolph-Macon College, and in so doing, he has deeply enriched our college community. From the time that Shawn Ryan, a native of Plainfield, New Jersey, stepped on our campus as a freshman, he completely immersed himself in many facets of campus life. Shawn graduates today with a double major in political science and communication studies, and he credits his success at Randolph-Macon to the support, friendship, and care that all our students receive from faculty and staff and from one another. Qualities that are, of course, at the very heart of Randolph-Macon. Shawn is well respected for his outstanding work on our Yellow Jacket newspaper, having led the paper as a junior politics editor during his sophomore year and very notably as editor-in-chief during both his junior and senior years. He played on our Yellow Jacket basketball team for 3 years, served as a critically important tour guide for 3 years as well, and was an active member of the Young Democrats throughout his college career. While Shawn was on campus, he was not only an excellent student and deeply involved in college life, he was also very intelligent and diligent about preparing for his future. He completed 5 internships. That's right, 5 internships, including 2 on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and 3 in his home state of New Jersey. Looking ahead, Shawn has set his sights on a career in politics, having secured another Capitol Hill internship that is already underway. So we are especially pleased to have shared this extraordinary time at Randolph-Macon with Shawn, and very much look forward to following the very bright future that's ahead of him. Class of 2018 and your guests, please welcome your senior speaker, Shawn Ryan.
I'll try and make this quick. I know it's President Lindgren, members of the Board of Trustees, our honored guests, our faculty, family, friends, and of course, class of 2018. I'm so grateful and honored to be here and speak on this special day. This day, June 2nd, 2018, will be sketched out in our minds for years to come as the day that it all became worth it. Those long nights in the 24-hour room doing papers that we probably should have done weeks prior, the stressful exam days because we didn't study, which we also probably should have done weeks prior, and long hours in front of a computer trying to get the new Wi-Fi to work, to submit that paper or study for that test, which I'm sure you can find a theme here, we probably should have done weeks prior. This is the day that it all became worth it, because we can now all walk across this stage in the center of the universe and feel proud of what we've all accomplished. Family and friends, this day for you as well is a day to rejoice, because the pride you have in your hearts as you watch your loved ones walk across this stage here in just a few moments makes all the sacrifice you endured completely worthwhile. I know that I personally would be nowhere without my loving family and awesome friends. You know, our loved ones have sacrificed so much for us to get to this point that I don't think any amount of RMC's ties and mugs obtained last minute before Mother's or Father's Day will ever repay them. Which reminds me, I don't know where she is, but a special thank you to Ms. Barclay for keeping the campus shop open an extra 5 minutes a couple of times a year. And although I didn't quite overcome the challenge my father set out for me in high school to beat his college GPA and graduate with honors, I think I get an A for effort. And trust me, I need all the easy A's I can get. Thanks, I need it. But seriously, it's a surreal realization that a few short years ago, we walked into Blackwell Auditorium, young and clueless, and were matriculated into the community of this outstanding institution. Today, we close that chapter, a little less young and a little less clueless, in true disbelief of how fast it all went. And the feeling I had, as I'm sure a lot of you can attest, was that the minute I stepped on this campus, I knew it was home. So my first time visiting campus, I was with my parents, it was fall break, and nobody was here. It had been my first time in Virginia, which was a different experience in and of itself. But leaving campus that day, I thought, this is where I belong. As a kid from North Jersey, which I'm sure all of you know if you've spoken to me for 5 minutes, going away from home was daunting. Those first few weeks, there was a real culture shock. But it was the people. The people here made me feel like I was coming home to school and not going away to school. During my time here, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in many different organizations and come across several different kinds of people. And what I've learned is that this community is a close-knit one. When thinking back on some of the relationships that I've made here, I'm reminded of an old African proverb that I once heard. It states, if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. But if you want to go somewhere far, go together. I think that this quote is a direct illustration of our experience here at Randolph-Macon. The togetherness and care that you feel here, from Miss Connie's smiling face in the omelet line in the morning at Estes to hear, good morning, baby, what you gonna have? To Tommy's welcoming wave and enthusiastic thumbs up in the jacket mobile at every single sporting event. That's what makes this place so great. You can really find community everywhere on this campus. As President Lindgren mentioned, as a part of the men's basketball program here, I always took notice of our motto, Jackets Family. After every huddle, at the end of every practice, game, or activity together, a captain or player of the game would shout Jackets, to which the rest of the team would respond, Family. That is what is shouted in unison every single time. It's truly a special tradition. Community is even on the doorway leading into the locker room where it says, you will never walk alone. And it couldn't be more true. As a tour guide, I found myself using cliches when talking to curious parents and nervous prospective students, saying things like, I chose this school because I just got this feeling. A feeling of togetherness, inclusion, and care. We are a small school with a very big heart. The support we get, the relationships we start, and the memories that we make are all because of the culture of this school, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But unfortunately, that love isn't felt everywhere. There are serious problems and challenges that the world faces that we, the class of 2018, are expected to fix. And our work is now just beginning. I think it's very apparent that there are a million problems in our world, and it would be naive to think that we can solve all of them. But why not try? Why not change the status quo? Why not challenge ideas? Our education here has gifted us with something that is invaluable, the ability to think critically. Issues do not get solved with complacency, and change is not administered without struggle. Our professors here, through the curriculum that they have provided us, have set us up for success. In the building of our character and cultivation of our minds, we've developed a foundation for creating real change. So my challenge to you, my fellow 2018 graduates, is to use the opportunity at success that we've all been gifted for good. Now, we may not all know what that looks like just yet. We don't all know what impact we want to make or how we want to make it. But I'm reminded of an anecdote uttered by a professional role model of mine, former chief speechwriter for President Obama, Jon Favreau, when giving his commencement speech at the College of the Holy Cross. He said that there were two types of people that want to be something and people that want to do something. Most of us may want to be something. We aren't all sure what, but we want to be important. We want to be successful. We want to be happy. And as many of the wise and accomplished people surrounding us today that have been in our seats before may say, all those things that we want come as a product of doing something. There will always be more money to be made, more fame to be gained, and more power to be had. And if you chase those things, you'll find yourself in a race with no finish line. But when you find fulfillment in doing something that you love, something that you're good at, and something that you're passionate about, the finish line in the race towards success and happiness suddenly appears. You know, our first few years out of college may be filled with meaningless tasks, unexciting jobs, and long hours. But our purpose, our why, that may lie within those seemingly difficult times, and then the real fun begins. This day, June 2nd, 2018, will be ingrained in our minds forever as the day that we graduated college. But the next chapter that we are about to embark on will be far more important. We must remember that receiving this degree is a mere formality, but the gifts and lessons that we've learned here will stay with us far longer and be far more impactful than a piece of paper. So let's be appreciative. Let's be thankful. Thankful for the support of our loved ones during our time here. Thankful for the relationships that we've built with one another that will last a lifetime. Thankful for Estes. Thankful for IDOCS and campus safety. Thankful for the heat being on when it's hot and the air being on when it's cold. Because I know I am. I'm going to share one more quote with you all. It's my favorite quote. It's from T.E. Lawrence, British ambassador to Saudi Arabia during World War I. I like it so much, I have part of it permanently etched on my arm, but I don't know if my mom knows, so don't tell her. The quote reads, "All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds wake in the day to find that it was vanity. But dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act on their dreams with open eyes to make it possible." How will we shape our future, our reality? I'm a big believer that opportunity isn't stumbled upon, but it's made. And we know that this college has provided us a holistic liberal arts education. However, we graduates, we have domain-specific objectives. Objectives which must be met with urgency, confidence, and passion. And so, I ask you all, how many of you will become the teacher that inspires a student to love learning as passionately as you do? How many of you will become the lawyer that achieves justice for those wrongfully accused in desperate search of peace of mind? How many of you will become the doctor that cures disease with innovation, or the artist that cures sadness with beauty? How many of you will become the diplomat that shows people that we are more alike than we are different in times of such contentious politics? Which I'll find out soon enough. How many of you will become the activist that breaks down barriers for the oppressed and gives a voice to the voiceless? And if you're a little like me, how many of you will enjoy some more time spent on mom's couch? And so, to my fellow classmates of the class of 2018, how urgently will you live? Will you be someone, or will you do something? You know, our time here has been limited, but our potential is not. So thank you so much, and congratulations to you all.
Shawn, thank you so much. I think all of us gathered here know that you will both be something and do something. And hopefully you have inspired all of us. It is now my honor to present the Murray Medal Award. The H.W. Murray Medal for Scholarship was established in 1889 by a legacy of Mrs. W.T. Goodwin of Louisa County, Virginia, in memory of her father. It is the valedictorian award presented to the member of the graduating class having the highest cumulative academic average. Will the recipient of this year's H.W. Murray Medal please come forward and be recognized? Shannon Ward. To confer degrees on this group of graduating seniors. Would the candidates, but not the sponsors, for the degree Bachelor of Science please rise? President Lindgren, I have the honor to present to you certain candidates for the degree Bachelor of Science. The registrar has certified that each of these candidates has completed all the requirements for the degree, and the faculty has voted unanimously to award these degrees.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty, and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees and the Commonwealth of Virginia, I am pleased to confer upon you the degree Bachelor of Science with all the rights, privileges, and honors appertaining thereto. Please move your tassel from your right to your left, and congratulations.
Will the sponsors of these graduates please rise? Sponsors, would you please hood your graduates? You may be seated. Will the candidates for the degree Bachelor of Arts please rise? President Lindgren, I have the further honor to present to you certain candidates for the degree Bachelor of Arts. The registrar has certified that each of these candidates has completed all the requirements for the degree, and the faculty has voted unanimously to award these degrees.
Upon the recommendation of the faculty and by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees in the Commonwealth of Virginia, I am pleased to confer upon you the degree Bachelor of Arts with all the rights, privileges, and honors appertaining thereto. Please move your tassel from your right to your left, and congratulations.
Will the sponsors please rise? Sponsors, please hood your graduates. You may be seated. Marshals, would you please escort the graduates to the platform to receive their diplomas? Julia Grace Knapp. Tara Hariharan Balasubramanian. Shawn Barry. Gregory Thomas Beal. Laura Peyton Ellis. Priscilla Koirala. Stephen Michael Neal. Christopher Bryce Rudiger. Rachel Lynn Salazar. Tori Mae Stribling. Iva Lucille Andrews. Erin Ashley Gray Bryant. Victoria Mia Capadora. Noah Benjamin Harrington. Alex Ross Keller. Elin James Mann. Rebecca Lynn McGilvery. Caitlin Marks Mean. Melissa Marie Mitchler. Kara Mackenzie Nicodemus. Fidel Ntumba Wantumba. Dorothy Xiaoshuang Parry. Erin Elizabeth Quinn. Scott Ellsworth Rhodes. Samantha Jo Scarola. Courtney Ellen Taylor. Z. Jean Anderson. Tujay D. Anglin. Dean Davis Bishop. Michael Brandon Bly. Christian Lane Buckler. Norman Undra Cade III. Harris Alexander Camilleri. Alexis Arden Campbell. Timothy Alexander Dobby. Victoria Noel Walker Graham. Farah Qatar Hatoum. Jacob Michael Hickman. Charles Stephen Hills. Sarah Catherine Hinson. Alicia Shea. Jennifer Amy Jew. Addison Lynn Johnson. Heather Nicole King. John Williams Knapp III. Ronald McAnallen Lee. Crystal Joelle Claire McDonald. Nicole Diana Minahan. Cullen Edward Moore. Brandy Alexis Movina. Alina Marie Paccioni. Garrett James Peak. John Paul Redmond. Madison Alexandria Rivers. Caitlin Marie Spencer. Kelsey Elizabeth Stanley. Hannah Jean Ann Starkey. Trevor Andrew Stottlemyre. Donovan Robert Sweeney. Ayana Darcel Taylor. Joseph Charles Michael Tuzolo. Haley Elizabeth Vass. Abigail Grace Williams. Lauren Grace Weigel. Samuel Lewis Amos III. Tate Elsu Buttry. Joseph Andrew Hamilton. Shannon Ashley Ward. Evelyn Morrissey Archer. Michael Francis Bertolino Jr. Catherine Calder Brown. Elizabeth Ruth Forstall. Sundaya Giri. Shelby Lynn Jacobs. Celeste Rain Johnson. Zachary Bennett Mayo. Emily Sarah Nicholson. Jordan Elizabeth Polar. Nicholas Vincent Ravita. Sarah Elizabeth Rockty. Taylor Ann Schools. Rachel Ruth Smith. Jacob Christian Steck. Devin Brady Strickler. Katie Ann Terhuen. Caitlin Hope Zohab. Mary Brett Campbell. James Baxter Carter Jr. Amber Lee Cooper. Alexander S. Kerno. Victoria Nicole Delano. Hayden Wynn Fontenot. Kyle Edward Gebline. Kayla Ann Hall. Leaf Christian Heltzel. Jessica Faith Hill. Sarah Grace Harper Hines. Adrian Lohr. Brian Christopher Lutz. Connor Edward Mans. William Taylor Manley. Natalie Cash Meyer. Heidi Elizabeth Muller. Megan Isabella Novotny. Novella Oyefunke Ogunshina. Tyler Patrick Pekak. Olivia Rose Piano. Megan Margaret Rafa. Aina Liansoa Ramia Ramanana. Melissa Michelle Runstrom. Ryan Joseph Sharenko. Kimberlyn Brooke Thorne. Skylar Lynn Toth. Brittany Lynn Wheeler. Jacob Thomas Wooten. Coleman Robert Adams. Kevin Adams. Emily Nicole Agee. Jessica Taylor Aliati. Patrick Channing Allen. Sarah Rebecca Alvanos. Lindsay Renee Andrews. Justin W. Babel. Robert Hunter Basie. Simone Adriana Beatty. Colleen Ann Beaver. Megan Olivia Beck. Jordan Elizabeth Bells. Erica Sue Benner. Jessica Nicole Boileau. Samuel Edward Bowen. Emily Ann Bowman. Kara Francis Bowman. Alexis Arnell Boyd. Alyssa Joyce Bradley. Bailey Mackenzie Breezy. Lauren Taylor Brogley. Jada Lee Brown. Casey Nicole Burns. Kelsey Elizabeth Burton. Ty Ellis Buttry. Amanda Hamlet Carroll. Emily Francis Carroll. Julia Ellen Carson. Danny K. Kaysen. Haley Madison Chandler. Kyle Matthew Cherry. Tyler Ray Chinchatti. Caroline Francis Clary. Lisa Marie Klinger. Christian Earl Koch. Angelica Nicole Collins. Karima Binti Conte. Emily Catherine Corneliuson. Rachel Covington, Karen Elizabeth Cowley, Taylor Yvonne Costello, Kiera Alexis Dale, Megan Elizabeth Daly, Mary Page David, Carrie Neal Davis, Morgan Ann Davis, Chiquita de Jesus, Emily Brent Digney, Connor Duke Diskin, Bailey Grant Donaker, Antonia Marie Douglas, Anna Louise Doubt, Matthew Liam Doyle, Caleb Scott Drake, Jacqueline Duff, John Page Edmonds Jr., Jacob Thomas Edwards, Anne Audrey Eliades, Essence Laurel Ellis, James Walter England, Richard William Esk, Ivan Ivanovich Fadeev, Michael Matthew Fari, Benjamin Kyle Fleming, Michael J. Gallagher Jr., Brendan Andrew Gear, Brianna Gwen Jeremont, Douglas Hunter Goff, Alexandra Forrest Graham, Megan Elizabeth Granger, Colin Mitchell Green, Taylor Alexandra Green, Nicholas David Greenberg, Nicole Alicia Gregory, Christy Lynn Hall, Anna Schwinn Hansard, Virginia Ann Harrison, Richard James Hausler III, Ebony Justice Hayward, Daniel Hazard, Shirlea Ann Henry, Ronald D. Hill III, Alexander Ray Heineman, Sydney Aaron Hinkle, Bailey Elizabeth Holland, Eric Warren Jackson, Madeline Renee Jackson, Roy Zev Johnson. Alina Iris Jones. Harley Summer Jones. Megan Irene Jones. Nathan Carl Jones III. Elisha Kent Kane. Brennan Francis Kays. Kyle Calvin Keepers. Lauren Angeline Kaiser. Abby Love Edwards Kindle. Skylar Austin King. Grace Caroline Click. Kayla Marie Kozlowski. William Maxwell Lacey. Amber Charnay Lee. Amelia Lynn Far Leong. Clark Hathaway Lewis, Jr. Nicole Marie Liberato. Alexandra Raleigh Lightfoot. Zachary Cole Lockhart. Laura Catherine Lonergan. Sarah Elizabeth Lundblom. Courtney Elizabeth Maiden. Casey Morgan Martino. Fraser Elizabeth Mayberry. Richard Curtis McBride III. Rebecca C. McCann. Andrea Nicole McCaslin. Kevin Matthew McDonough Jr. Seamus R. McDonald. Samuel William McGinty. Brittany Elizabeth McGuire. Daly Elizabeth McHugh. Jacob A. McHugh. Helen Elizabeth McKinley. Cole Michael Millerini. David Tyler Miracle. William Lewis Mitchell. Dejan Rashad Moore. Hannah Rebecca Moore. Keelan James Moore. Miles William Muncie. Davy Nicole Nagel. Maria C. Nelson. Peter Norman Nelson. Nicole Mae Nicholson. Wesley Thomas Nicholson. Daniel Nangle Noe. Avon Sterling Oliver. Brittany Marie Piscini. Jordan Cole Painting. Forrest Jeffrey Parsons. Robert Earl Parsons, Jr. Savannah Todd Parsons. James J. Patton. Casey Savannah Payne. Christopher Thomas Pendergraft. Catherine Petz. Ashley Marie Ferris. Savannah Lynn Pierce. Jacob Richard Pinkston. D.J. Pope. Carolyn Melinda Proctor. Danielle Kirsten Randolph. Brennan Donald Retzer. At a special ceremony yesterday, the following graduate was commissioned into the United States Army, Second Lieutenant Teal Reynolds. Jeffrey Len Richardson II. Justice James Richardson. James Michael Richmond. Margaret Rose Rigg. Taryn Victoria Robichaw. Caitlin Amanda Robison. Sophia E. Rodriguez. Reese Biddlecombe Rogers. Kayla Lynn Royster. Aaron Mackenzie Russell. Shawn Michael Ryan. Samantha Charlene Saladay. Rachel Collins Samuelson. Tori Adriana Santiago Troutman. William Joseph Schaub. Julie Adams Schwartz. Morgan Elizabeth Seal. Peter Eric Shaner. Jonathan Mitchell Sheeran. Ian Michael Shelley. Mallory Carolyn Shepard. Michael Paul Silverthorne. Aaron McDermott Skevington. Sheridan Morgan Skirpy. Tyler Maurice Slayton. Savannah Lynn Sloan. Lydia K. Smallwood. Savannah Jordan Smith. Caroline Catherine Snell. Rachel Elizabeth Spencer. Richard Morrison Spires IV. Emily Erin Spragg. Sarah Marie Sprinkle. Ashley Nicole Stanley. Julia Christine Steck. Andrew Cole Stevens. Jeremy Aaron Sternlicht. Brianna Lachey Stewart. Parker Stewart. Alexis Tierra Stinson. Lavon Lonnie Stinson. Michael McCoy Story II. Nicholas Daniel Stottelmeyer. Kirby Joseph Struhar. Charles David Thomas III. Carolyn A. Thomas. Avery Moore Thompson. Cody Patrick Thompson. Savannah Elise Trainum. Caleb Dalton Trump. Jacob Michael Tyler. Taylor Nicole Vaughn. Andrew Harrison Venezia. Robert Blake Walker. Madison Ann Ward. Brooke Allison Weiss. Megan Elizabeth Wenger. Kelsey Elizabeth Wilkinson. James Thomas Wilson. Taylor Isabella Worrell. Owen Warnham Wright. Ethan Andrew Yanes. Amanda Lynn Yates. Henry Jacob Young. Jordan Blair Zentner. Christian Baird Cousins of Richmond, Virginia, was also a member of RMC's class of 2018. He passed away April 1st, 2016, after a courageous battle. President Lindgren, the class of 2018 has graduated.
To the Randolph-Macon College class of 2018, it is now time for you to take your leave of this wonderful place. You have received an extraordinary education here, and I trust who you are and what you take away from this special college will hold you in good stead in all that you do going forth. Here you should have, above all, learned how to learn, and make yourself a pledge today. While your undergraduate days have reached their conclusion, your days of being a student will never end. And I hope the values you have refined and maybe even developed here will help you to be strong leaders in our society and in our world. Before we leave today, we have two more important Randolph-Macon traditions to celebrate. You graduates would simply not be where you are today were it not for the loving support of many others. I speak of all those who have encouraged and supported you graduates so magnificently, the mothers and fathers, grandmothers and grandfathers, brothers and sisters, friends and loved ones all, so that they can receive the enthusiastic appreciation for these past 4 years and before from the RMC class of 2018. Would all of those loved ones I just mentioned of any member of this class please stand and allow these graduates and the rest of us to thank you for all that you've done. And by the way, graduates, you have another special reason to give thanks to your parents today, as the Randolph-Macon Parents Association, inspired by Professor Emeritus Robert Barrett, has made possible the special honored graduates brick walkway with your names inscribed that is over near the Fountain Plaza. We certainly thank your generous parents for their gifts to help make that walkway possible. And others who have lifted you graduates up on their shoulders for these past few years include the superb faculty of this institution and our caring staff. What I know best about this college, and Shawn Ryan expressed it eloquently, is that seniors value most your connection with your dedicated and outstanding Randolph-Macon faculty, who in turn have so strongly valued your well-being and your success, so that this important group too can be recognized by both the graduating class and all of those loved ones to accept our grateful appreciation for a job well done. I ask the faculty and all staff members who are here today to stand and receive our thanks. Now, none of us would be who we are and where we are without our mentors. I know that you graduates have your own mentors to thank for today's important milestone, including special faculty and staff and coaches and members of your family and friends. And I encourage you to do just that. Thank them and thank them, early and often, for what they have meant to you. We simply don't do this enough, and today, above all days, we are reminded of how important it is. Your senior class has been blessed by having fabulous new facilities here, 11 in total, including Brock Hall, our science building, new just for your senior year. As you leave this place today, I know you will continue to do your part to make sure your Randolph-Macon College, now your alma mater, is preserved and flourishing and keeps getting better in the future. Your splendid class gift, along with the support of the class of 1968 with whom you are sharing this special day, already sets you apart in the annals of RMC history and bodes very well for the future of your alma mater. So keep giving back. By doing so, you honor yourselves and those who came before you, like the alumni celebrating with you today, and so many, many others who have done so much and contributed so much to make your experience possible. And like them, you too will now be the shoulders on which future generations of Yellow Jackets will stand. And I know yours will be mighty shoulders indeed. And our greatest hope on this special day for you, our new graduates, is that you will also keep getting better. 10 years ago on this stage, the class of 2008 heard another excellent commencement speech, just as we heard today from President Quiche. The speaker that day was a television journalist named Tim Russert, and while some of you graduates may not know of him, I expect your parents and grandparents do. He was the longtime, widely respected moderator of NBC's Meet the Press. What was significant about his speech here is that it turned out to be the very last public appearance that he made, as he died very suddenly and at too young of an age the very next week. But he said something I'd like to close with, well worth repeating in my view, as these words remain relevant today. Tim Russert said, "The education you received at Randolph-Macon College isn't meant to be the same you could receive at scores of colleges, public or private, in Virginia or across the country. You've been given an education that says it's not enough to have a skill, not enough to have read all the books or know all the facts. Values really do matter. Its only justification, this extraordinary place, is because it has a special mission, training young men and women to help shape and influence the moral tone and fiber of our nation and our world. And that now means as graduates, you have a special obligation and responsibility," unquote. Class of 2018, you do indeed have that obligation and responsibility, and I would add an enormous special opportunity. That is to bring higher levels of civility and humanity, of honesty and empathy into all your relationships, both personal and professional, thereby greatly enriching your own lives, but most especially making our society and our world a better place. And what could be a more auspicious result from your 4 years as a Yellow Jacket? To the Randolph-Macon College class of 2018, I offer my heartiest congratulations and Godspeed.
Following the recession of the platform party, everyone here is invited for a picnic lunch over in Crenshaw Gymnasium. Sarah Rockty will lead us in the alma mater following the benediction, so please stand and remain standing. O God, lead us forward as we go from here. May the knowledge and wisdom we found on this campus empower us to do good in the world. Guide and direct our paths for the good of all humankind and all of creation. Amen.
Right here, right here.
Okay. Bowered misted oaks and maples, beautiful to view, stands our noble Alma Mater, Randolph-Macon true. Lift the chorus, beat it onward, ne'er let praises fail. Hail to thee, our Alma Mater, Randolph-Macon, hail.
Very nice. Congratulations, sir. Well done.